The dragon spiritual path is more than just a path, a spiritual path. It is much more than a belief. It is something that we feel. It is something that we can feel from inside of us. That is why I always say on the dragon's path, the most thing that you need is to trust your own instincts and trust the feelings that you have. These feelings will guide you. It will be guided by your dragon, and it will be guided by your own draconic spirit. So it's a connection of gods and spirits that will guide you through the dragon's path. And out of these feelings, I can feel something very, very strong. And that the dragon once lived upon this world in flesh and blood. That these grounds that we walk on, that once there was a dragon that was printed their foot upon this. That their body and soul but was just present here with also flesh and blood. I don't really believe it, but it's much more that I feel it. So I'm very sure that this was actually a thing. Why didn't they find the dragon bones? They still need to find and discover a lot of new dinosaurs as well, because what they discovered maybe is just the tip of the iceberg. It might be that there are bones discovered later on in the future, but I am so much sure of this, that the dragon lived upon this world, but this was one of the many cycles that the dragon had into what I feel. The dragon spirit is immortal. The dragon spirit just continues, but flesh and blood dies. So in a way, their time here upon this world was temporarily. It is something that they needed to see and needed to learn. They needed to learn from this physical realm that we live in as well. They needed to learn how it is to just to fight for your life and die and live and being born just like everyone else upon this beautiful world, because this, my brothers and sisters, is a bit like the center point of this universe. This is where the dragon Tiamat sank into the ground. This is where all of the elemental gods come together and created life. And to this place where also the dragon needed to know much more. They needed to know, they needed to see, they needed to experience. And that is one of the many cycles that they had, one of the many important cycles, even though they will experience death for maybe even the first time. Because death for every animal, for everything that is alive, is the worst thing that can happen. Because you don't even know what kind of a darkness is in the abyss that we fall into. And that is also something of the dragon, because with every rebirth that they have, a piece of their memory will be erased. Also, what kind they needed to also to know what kind of a fear every animal has once it's about to die. That is also something that they needed to experience. That is also very good from Dragonheart, you know, this movie with Draco. That is one of the few things that I actually said, okay. When he said, if you are just alone, why don't you just prefer death? And he said, yeah, I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid of death. And that is true. That is also what dragons had. Dragons were also afraid of it. You might even say, how come that they are afraid? They know that it will continue in another cycle. But it's another cycle. This cycle will end. This cycle is something that we need to it's so precious. I sometimes hear brothers and sisters that they don't want to live here anymore. That they just want to continue to the next cycle. But why? You are here because of a reason. You are surrounded by all of the dragons. You are also here because it's a cycle. It's once more a cycle. And I do believe once the dragon was here in flesh and blood, that they had a long, long lifespan. That they were ancient. That they were maybe even thousands of years old, because they are so divine and godlike that humans were impressed. Also something that I think that the early human beings knew what the dragon was. They made drawings of them. They in every corner of the world they made the images of dragons, and they said it was real. So in a way, I believe also that the dragon was not only here in flesh and blood, but that they meet human beings. But human beings always have been like you cannot trust much humans, you know. Much humans will stab your back, and that is what I believe happened. And that is also something that I believe that it's the end of the times of the dragons. Now the dragon is just a legend, the dragon is just a myth, or just for entertainment on TV. But I believe that the dragon was very much real, and that they were descendants of gods, and that they now live on within us. So yeah, believing in dragons, I do believe in dragons. I believe not only in the spirit, but also that they were here in flesh and blood. That they have this divine blood inside of them, this divine flesh and blood that they had inside of them, that they were protected with scales and wings and horns, and they were actually more like the kings and queens, as I can see it, of this earth, the kings and queens. But humans didn't want to see it. Some of them worshipped them, but the other ones didn't want to see this. They saw themselves as gods. Humans saw themselves as gods. That is where religions came from, of course, that they worship their own self and no longer worship it's not like the dragons demanded or something that they needed to bow, but that is how humans are. They needed to bow for something, but they were not bowing anymore for the dragons, so they needed to bow for humans. And so this is not only just a belief. And you do much rituals, and you do many things for the dragon, and you try to open your hand and to connect with the dragon, then you understand much more of how it goes, of how it was, of how it's still going to be, of what a dragon is, of how their spirit works. Their spirit lives continuously into cycles, new life, and death again. And this was one of them. And this cycle continues now within us, that we continue the spirit of the dragon within us and all of the dragons around us that are guiding us. And they also had experiences of being born just like everyone else, just being born, just a child of nature, it's not just, of course, but the dragon was very much real, and it's much more than a belief. It's try to feel it. Try to feel this energy that they left behind upon this world. When the dragon left, they left behind something of energy upon this world. Some kind of a protection energy. Some things that we can feel. We can feel the energies of the dragon, and the energy that you need to feel. That is something that you need to practice yourself in, to feel and to detect dragon energy as they lived here upon this world, and everything that they did here upon this world. You might even connect with all of the dragons that walked around into this forest and where you live now. That they left behind an energy that you can talk with. So it's much more than just a belief. It is something that we feel. It is also the same thing that as the dragon's path is not a choice. It is something that you accept. It's an acceptance of what is inside of you, what is around you, and who you are. And I try to do this in this forest, and that is also the reason why I came to live into this forest. Into this forest, there are much more openings to the spiritual realms, and I can still sense the dragon everywhere. Not only the gods, but also the guardians. Why can you feel the guardians? Because they were here as residents, as being born with flesh and blood, dragon's blood, dragon energies. Everything that was draconic lived upon this world, and also their spirit continue, of course. They continue into many cycles, into many lives, and one of them is the life that you are leading. So into this cycle that they had here, that is why humans know dragons. That is why they know dragons. That is why we now know the image of the dragon, how they look like. And how they look like is more like that they have been the equipment of being the king of and queen upon this world. The horns are the crown, and the cape is the wings. And their scales are like armor, that they are just completely protected by nature itself, by their gods, by the gods as well. And now, how we live now is more like a cover upon their face, a cover because dragons decided, not really decided, but they have gone away, but now they have returned into a different kind of way, because every cycle is different, and this cycle is also different, but the dragon spirit remains the same. My brothers and sisters, be blessed.